And welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to GeekWatch, a subsidiary of the Monastery. I am your one and only gaming monk, better known as Mildra. With me, I have two of my good brothers. Ha 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 ha. We have the king of memes and the blackest Jack Frost in history, good brother Akira. And we have the living stack of comics and the Eye of Sauron. Good brother Doku. How the fuck we doing tonight?
Oh, Ooh. Delightful as always.
The Falcons didn't blow another lead this time.
No, probably because the blowing was handled by the train.
Fair enough.
Damn, even I feel bad about commenting on that one.
Look, it could be worse. You could have the stadium that was in Brewster's Millions, where there was a train right in the middle of the baseball field.
Yo, facts.
I can't refute that. Fair point.
And yes, I just referenced Brewster's Millions, which for me, the thing I remember the most about that is not Richard Pryor, but the fact that the baseball manager was played by Jerry Orbach. You know, Lenny Briscoe?
Yeah.
Which, as somebody who grew up watching him as Lenny Briscoe in Law & Order, it's a very surreal sight to see. But for the longest time, we've tackled stuff in anime, we've tackled stuff in comics, we've tackled stuff in tokusatsu, we've tackled stuff in video games and tabletop games, but we have yet to tackle anything in film. And thus, that brings us to this week. We're finally doing a film-related topic, because I have been waiting to do this for years. Finally, we have our chance to bully J.J. Abrams, a.k.a. Hollywood's California roll.
Oh.
Which might be giving him too much credit, because California rolls are at least edible.
Thought you were going to say California rolls are at least good.
Do you know... Would any of you like to take a stab as to why I call J.J. Abrams a California roll?
Your guess is as good as mine.
I'll take a guess. Because he's a basic bitch.
Yes. The California roll is the basic bitch of sushi.
You're not wrong.
Yep.
And Hello there, Nathan. Hello there, Planet Bound. Hey there, Slick Rick and Dr. No. Welcome to the party. The California roll is the safest type of sushi that you can buy. It is completely inoffensive, and I want to make clear on something. The reason why I make that analogy is not because of any sort of not because of any dib on California. It's just the California roll is the most default kind of sushi that you can get. This is why personally I don't really go for it. I prefer going with sashimi.
Dude, you're talking to somebody that give me albacore, hamachi, unagi, and then hamachi kama to start, and I'm good. Like California, at least get like a shrimp tempura roll. Who the fuck gets California rolls? What's wrong with you?
I only ever see them in gas stations and grocery stores.
For a reason.
And when it comes to now, JJ had started out doing television, and with some of the stuff that he was at least involved in, he seemed all right. Like, I didn't have a problem with, say, Alias. Although I do have to wonder if the reason that ended up working out decently is because that was based on an existing property.
Probably, but I'm gonna go ahead and say no. It just because of the way Star Trek turned out, which I know we'll get to.
Yeah, we will get to that.
My guess is probably because of there was some oversight and a decent writing staff behind it. I don't really think that was all JJ.
Yeah, I do. You know how Vince Russo can be tolerable if you've got somebody yanking his leash.
Yeah,
I think it's in a similar fashion.
no, I agree. I think it's because he had a decent staff and telling him like, no, JJ, we know you want to, but just no, calm down, come back to center a little bit.
There was also the fact that he was the guy who got me to turn away from watching Mission Impossible for a few years. Largely because he was involved, if I'm not mistaken, he was involved with Mission Impossible 3.
I think it was either 3 or 4. I'll look it up real quick.
Apparently he's been responsible for a good amount of Mission Impossibles, including but he's mostly done it as producer. So I guess I was wrong on that front. And as far as Alias, he was executive producer when it came to Alias, which doesn't mean a whole lot.
Yeah, it doesn't.
Mm-hmm. But it looks like he only did when it comes to Mission Impossible, he was only involved with Ghost Protocol, Rogue Nation, Fallout,
and 7 and 8,
and 7 and 8. Well, 7 and 8 are in production, so can't really comment on something I haven't seen. He's had a hand in he's had an EP role when it comes to Lovecraft Country, but I'll be quite honest. I saw a couple episodes of Lovecraft Country and I turned off. Largely because it felt like a one-trick pony. It felt like it was going, hey, let's bring H.P. Lovecraft into the Jim Crow era, and let's talk about how H.P. Lovecraft was a racist. It's like, okay, what else you got?
Yeah, yeah. Imagine our shock. It's not
Um,
like Lovecraft wasn't known for openly stating how he felt about certain ethnicities.
yeah. Now, I'm pretty sure you. When it comes to Lost, the thing that I find interesting about something like that is in its early seasons when things were kept relatively small, it was all right. But it was when they started to try and pile on mystery after mystery after mystery without having a full grasp of how to actually do a conclusion. You know, the Gynax ending problem. That was where they had issues, and Lost has one of to this day will have one of the biggest fuck yous of an ending I have ever seen in my years covering entertainment.
That's the thing. When it comes to Lost, I got through season 1. I got through season 2. Around season 2, I wanted to punch out. I watched like the first 3 or 4 episodes of the third season. And as you said, it started getting to this point where I was like, okay, we've already got 2 or 3 plot lines going at this point. And in the first episode, you introduce 2 more while not addressing the primary plot line, or at least in no significant way. And then you get to the second episode and you introduce another plot line. It's like, by the 4th episode of the third season, you've got like 5 fucking plot lines going on, and you haven't done anything of significance with any of them. I was like, no, I'm out. I do not have the time to follow this. Like,
A lot of it felt like trying to put in fodder for discussion on forums. And this brings me to something that Abrams has talked about in a TED Talk almost a decade ago. And that is his mystery box. And I know Midnight's Edge ripped into the whole mystery box thing and called it immature. But it's this idea that he has this fascination with having this thing that is a mystery to the audience, and that you have to have that to hook the audience in. I think in having this sort of mindset, he is underestimating his audience.
no, I agree. The problem with the whole mystery box approach is the same problem that you run into with Dumb and Dumber when it comes to how they did Game of Thrones, and Subverting Expectations. Your audience at a certain point in time, once you've established a story, they expect something. You don't have to surprise them. You don't have to come out of left field and put a crazy plot twist at the end. That's not necessary. And in fact, I would make the argument that if you're trying to go with the mystery box or subverting expectations approach, to me that says the writer is not confident in their conclusion.
Well, taking that into account, now first off, I do want to point out something that Planetbound has said, that the mystery box is a crucial storytelling element, but if the creator doesn't know what's in the box, it doesn't work, which is true. When you have a box for its own sake, it just falls flat. What would be a situation where doing subverting expectations be a warranted thing?
I would make the argument that are we talking subverting expectations, or are we talking mystery box? Because in my opinion, they're 2 completely different things.
Well, to get all our bases covered, since you said they're different things, and thanks, Yan Kodiak, for subscribing. Since we've established that they're 2 different things, how would you define each of them?
So subverting expectations would be you're expecting a story to go a certain way. You're expecting either action adventure, or you're expecting horror, or you're expecting a murder mystery, and it that is not what it is. Or you present the story in such a way that it doesn't turn out to be what you expect. That's subverting expectations. When it comes to a mystery box, on the other hand, the story takes a hard left turn. It takes a twist. Mystery box, why subverting expectations in mystery boxes can be somewhat similar. A mystery box is usually a lot more jarring. It's not even alluded at in the storytelling. It just comes out of nowhere, and it either works or it doesn't. So, for example, subverting expectations. You expect Littlefinger in Game of Thrones to not be called out by Arya and Sansa, but then suddenly, boom, he's put in that situation, and he is. That would be subverting expectations. Like, holy crap, you could find it reasonable. You would expect it to happen, but it wasn't your number one or number two go-to pick. Versus a mystery box would be having Arya jumping out of nowhere like a freaking spider monkey and then killing the Night King. Spoilers if you hadn't seen it. That's a mystery box, but not in a good way.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm using a bad example in the terms of Arya just killing the Night King out of nowhere. Mystery boxes could be done in a way where that twist is satisfying. That example wasn't one. It's something that happens quick, clear, out of the blue. It's not established. Subversion has to be established and expected to some degree.
Which I can definitely get behind that as a concept. Now, taking that into account, I will admit that a big reason why it took me a while for actually before I get into something like Mission Impossible, I think it'd be a good time to tackle the stupidity that happened with Cloverfield.
Mm-hmm.
Because you were probably around as much as I was when everybody was talking about the mystery of what the Cloverfield monster would look like. And I will admit, to a certain extent, the original Cloverfield was an interesting attempt at early viral marketing. Since a lot of the marketing was done through MySpace instead of through traditional methods. Yes, this was during that time when MySpace actually mattered.
Ugh.
Yeah, I know. I didn't care for MySpace either, simply because navigation was a chore and there wasn't a whole lot of connectivity. But when it came to the monster, there were all these talks about showing potential this and potential that. But when we actually get to see the monster, it's meh. I mean, it was nice to see a kaiju film being produced by someone outside of Japan for once. But at the same time, it's still kind of meh, largely because of the fact that a film like Cloverfield is written like you would write a horror film, and I don't know about you, but I don't think you can write a kaiju movie in the way you'd write a horror film with a horror monster.
And you can, if you tailor it just for that. And this is where subverting expectations fails. If they were to just not show the monster, if the only time you ever got a good look at it was right at the end, rather than dwelling on, oh, here's the monster, it breathes through weird gill-looking things, and it's going to pause for 3 seconds, and then it's going to chomp you. That's not a good way of subverting expectations. Subverting expectations would be you, from the cameraman's perspective, look up right as the monster chomps you, and then at the end of the film, you see that still of just that monster's face right before it's about to chomp said dude. That's how you subvert expectations properly. You actually get a good look at the monster when you're not expecting to ever get a picture of what he really actually looks like. He or she or it, whatever you want to call it. That's how you subvert expectations well. What Cloverfield did is they gave us a nice long, about as long as it's going to take for me to finish this sentence, look at the monster and breathe through the gills and then chomp. That's not what you do. And it doesn't work for the tone of the movie either. I mean, hell, man, the sewer scene with the tiny little monsters, that was fucking creepy. That worked well.
And I think the reason it worked well is because since he's trying to do horror with that, you can't really do horror when you have wide open areas like, a street in the middle of fucking New York City.
Yeah, you're smack in the middle of Central Park after hunkering underneath a frickin' bridge and bombs and everything just went off.
And I just realized this is the same. This was the same kind of mistake that happened with Zilla. The scenes in MSG where you're dealing with the baby Zillas, those had more of an impact than seeing the big guy.
No, exactly, and it's because the tone fits with what you're presenting, and it all goes back to, if you're gonna set a tone for a movie and then subvert expectations, you at least want to keep the tone consistent. The end of Cloverfield doesn't fit with the tone. It doesn't fit with that fast-paced, everything's dark, you're in confined spaces, you got out of confined space, escaping the little mini roach crawler whatever's, chick's stomach explodes, oh crap, we have to get out of the city, bombs are going to go off, and then it just ends with this, oh hey look, here's the big monster you've been running from. No. No, don't do that.
Not unless you like disappointing people.
Well, I guess if that's your goal, then
Congratulations, you succeeded.
yes.
Congratulations, you succeeded. Never do that again. Ever.
Hey, Aaron.
We're talking about Abrams, aren't we?
Yes.
Hear me.
And in fact, we are right in the middle of discussion about why Cloverfield didn't work.
Oh my God! It's Cloverfield, aka a big Blair Witch Project with a much bigger budget.
No, a Blair Witch Project with a much bigger budget was Paranormal Activity.
Yeah, what would you say Cloverfield was then?
Trying to make a horror movie out of Godzilla and failing.
Yeah, using a bunch of found footage bullshit. I think Cloverfield by itself killed the whole found footage craze once and for all.
I'd say I'm not going to say it killed it because then a few years later we would get Paranormal Activity, but what it did show is that the found footage motif is only good in very specific uses, and that's why now even though there's a lot of similarities to Akira, I didn't mind Chronicle as a found footage style movie.
Huh.
Largely because I think the reason why is because well, it's filmed in the way you'd expect some dumbass kids to film it. It reminded me of some of the film projects I did in high school.
Yeah, no shit.
Also, Dr. No is saying sorry for your loss, Aaron, as far as what happened to the Bears.
I don't want to even fucking talk about it. That they need a fire Pace and get rid of their entire their offensive coaching staff. They need to be, you know what? You know what they need to be. You know what they need to do, right?
Detroit?
Yes, indeed.
No, not Detroit. No, please. Anything but that. No.
Nathan's asking if single take filming replaced found footage. I'd say not really, because single take filming had already been around before then. I'd say that single take filming was a lot more refined because there were better rigging equipments as the years went on. And one of my personal pioneers of single take filming is the bar scene in The Protector. You know, where you have this long fight scene that's all done on one continuous take that goes for like 16 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
And single take filming is supposed to be just one continuous perspective versus found footage is supposed to be intentionally amateurish.
And the thing is, and this is something that I've seen certain wrestlers comment on. It's hard for professionals to pretend to be amateurs.
It's true.
Because by the time you're at that level, you've beaten out the amateur habits out of you, and now you have to try and pretend that you're emulating those habits.
Yeah.
There's a reason that Blair Witch was incredibly successful and the original Paranormal Activity, but then look at Paranormal Activity by the time you just get to the second movie. You can already tell it doesn't have that same sort of found footage feel to it.
Well,
the
other thing to keep in mind is that small scale gimmick style horror can only work once.
Yeah.
You have the same, even if it's not doing the whole found footage thing. Like say Poltergeist. You couldn't do Poltergeist twice. I mean, you could try, but you're going to fail.
Well, technically they tried twice, but it succeeded. Poltergeist 2 succeeded because of 2 words. Henry Kane.
It
was Poltergeist 3 that was bad.
Yeah.
That's not even what I'm talking about, though. Just using Paranormal Activity. If you look at the first film versus the second film, and the way that it's actually the film itself is shot, and the way that the takes, the angles, and everything are, it doesn't make sense because it doesn't feel like it's just a random amateur film. It just doesn't work. And granted, they learned something from the first film. They know what worked and what didn't, but it shows in the second film, and it doesn't work because it doesn't feel like found footage. It feels like someone set up static cams in the corner of your house.
Now, getting back to the matter of somebody like Abrams. Aaron, we had brought up Lost earlier and how it collapsed under its own weight. Did you ever go through any of Lost and get a similar vibe to what Doku and the rest of us did?
Thank God I avoided Lost. Because I heard that was the Game of Thrones disappointment before the Game of Thrones disappointment.
I would argue that it only started it. I would argue that it took a bit less time for Lost to have the problems that Game of Thrones did.
Yeah, really.
The ending to Lost was just a bit of a final nail. But
I would make one argument.
Go ahead,
if you don't mind, real quick. The problem that Lost ran into versus Game of Thrones at least set up all of the plot lines and character arcs within the first season and built on it from there. It didn't just introduce them out of the clear blue. not at least not within the first season. Lost
So-
just kept introducing new
So
stuff.
So Lost was pretty much like two steps shy of Shyamalan.
Yeah, something like that. Again, it's not like Lost was building off of the ongoing plot lines and story arcs. It's just they kept introducing things over and over and over again, and it just got to the point where it's like, at least me personally, I was like, I can't keep up with this. I'm out. Like, let me know when it ends, and I'll watch a YouTube video explaining it, because I don't care. It killed my interest.
Mm-hmm.
But no, that was my point.
Yeah, and I can definitely see that. Now, I do have to ask this question. One of the other attempts at horror that he did a few years ago, in fact, 2 years ago, was Overlord. Did anybody make an attempt to look at that?
Oh, I avoided that one.
I think I watched like a minute of it. I don't remember.
Yeah. I remember taking a look at it a little bit, and you'd think doing World War II horror with a little bit of Nazi scientists, you'd think I'd be all over that. But
Oh, was that the one that was essentially supposed to be based off like Mangala?
Let me see.
If I remember correctly, it was Nazi medical experiments. It felt like somebody looked at Joseph Mengele and was like, "Oh yeah, let's make a horror movie out of this," as if nobody hasn't done that already.
But it's been done to death.
Yeah, that's kind of my that's a point of contention I have with J.J. Abrams. He recycles a lot of ideas and tries to make it flashy, and it usually doesn't work.
Well, this again ties into that whole California Roll comparison that I made, because with like I said, the reason why the California Roll is the basic bitch of sushi, and if you ask him. And when it comes to these sort of, when you give him the reins to do film or do film writing, he's going to do something that is at its most basic, at its most inoffensive. This is and something like Secret Nazi Experiments is right in that camp. Even though I'm pretty sure if somebody wanted to see that and see it done better, there's other alternatives, and two, Hellboy still exists. But when it comes to that whole safetiness, consider Super 8, which when I saw the trailer for that, I thought you're trying to do a poor man's E.T. Everything about that came off like a poor man's E.T.
Well, not only that, you want to do a poor man's E.T., but you want to make it serious. It just doesn't work.
Which kind of misses the point of something like something like E.T.
Exactly. I have so many irritations with JJ. I'm not even going to get into them.
Yeah,
really.
But I suppose one that is worth really diving into is the issue of we were gonna eventually tackle the big stuff that he's handled. So I want to focus on Star Trek first. Don't worry, we will get to his Star Wars films in a moment, but I need to tackle Star Trek first because I was expected to go in either camp when I found out that we were getting a Star Trek film for the first time in over a decade. And I figured I was gonna either really like it or really hate it. And then the worst thing happened.
What?
The film was just okay.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't a complete shit. It was watchable, at least. That's something, right?
SF Debris, who does really, really good Star Trek reviews, and I highly recommend his work, gave it a 7, which is the same score he gave the last time he had to watch a Star Trek movie where the cast of the TOS cast goes back in time. And I do understand why some people hated it. Whether it be for the increased action, the fucking lens flares, which is another thing that needs to cool off on, is
really.
the goddamn lens flares.
Fucking graphic, freaking.
The design of the Enterprise, where it looked like walking into an Apple store. And as somebody who's a bit light sensitive, I think you can understand why I'd want to stay out of that.
Yeah. Oh, by the way, when they go back in time, are you talking about The Voyage Home?
Yeah.
That was actually good.
That was the Voyage Home. The Voyage Home was good. Was a popcorn dumb fun.
Yeah, it's one of those popcorn where it's like, okay, it's one of those feel good movies. You get, especially the part when Vulcan nerve pinches that asshole play this music too loud on the bus.
When it comes to the whole timeline thing, they had outright done the smart thing and gone with a alternate timeline approach so that they wouldn't piss people off. And I was fine with it so long as there was going to be mainline stuff that would continue on with the timeline, but the reason why that's in limbo is because of the three-way pissing contest that's been going on for the last few years.
Oh,
which is why I said a year ago, just give McFarlane the IP. I mean, I don't like Family Guy, but I think he's shown with the Orville that he's going to fuck it up less than you do.
Yeah, but you know how it is. They just want to destroy it like any other IP.
I'd say it's less than the destroy factor and more of you've got 3 camps that have their own idea on what to do, and nobody can agree who's getting coffee because you've got a fight between Viacom CBS, Bad Robot, Secret Door.
Yeah, so it's a freaking Mexican standoff.
Yeah. And when it comes to the thing is, I have seen both sides of the argument when it comes to Abrams' Star Trek. At least with the first film. We'll tackle Into Darkness in a bit. Oh boy, when we get to that.
Ooh.
Both sides are right and both sides are wrong. There is very much a push forward that can be enjoyable. At the same time though, the times that they try and talk tech made me bust out laughing. There's too much brightness, and you know things are fucked up when I have to wear my sunglasses inside the damn theater, because around the time that the film came out, I was still in the middle of recovering from my injury, so the amount of white light from the Enterprise bridge was giving me headaches. And in the middle of it, I had to go into my bag and take out my sunglasses.
I'm like, Jesus Christ, dial down the lighting. This ain't a clean room.
And I know it sounds like I'm exaggerating when I say that I that I was getting headaches from all the light. I'm not. Like around the time that I was recovering from my eye injury, the kind of fluorescent my light sensitivity was at a point where the fluorescent lights in, say, an office building or in a store like that, it felt like my face was getting squeezed in a vice.
Oh, it was that bad.
Yeah. And when it comes Planet Bound, as far as doing a Star Trek episode, I will take that into consideration. I can't promise any dates though. That being said, at the very I will freely admit that the countdown comic to that film did a much better job at the writing than the actual film did, and if they had used that storyline, then they could have had a legit villain in Nero instead of some brooding emo with a trident.
That's kind of my irritation with JJ. And this sort of covers all of his films, especially the Star Wars and Star Trek ones.
Mm-hmm.
Just because you have a few impactful scenes that really do hit home, and I'll give JJ credit, there are times where he has some really impactful scenes. But that, with some good special effects, doesn't carry a movie, let alone make it good.
No, and that does tie into something that I wanted to discuss. He has a bit of a habit of activity instead of movement. A lot of activity, but not a lot of movement.
Yes, he does. Just because a lot is going on, it doesn't change the fact that it's a lot of nothing.
Yep. Now, I know that there was talk about the soft lighting of the 60s. I don't quite agree with romanticizing a certain era. You guys know that I will never do that kind of thing. It's just not how I work. That being said, when it comes, the reason I bring up the whole activity over movement is when I'm in a lot of the way his films are set up, I do sometimes have to wonder if he's using the techniques that work fine in television as if they can work in film. Because that whole thing of doing a whole lot of activity but not a whole lot of character movement, that works perfectly fine in syndicated television, which is where he made his name. That's not something that really works in film, though. Like in film.
Also, someone needs to tell JJ, especially when he's working in anything involving space or just dark backdrops in general. Whatever he does, just take the saturation and cut it down by 10 to 20%, and then it'll look good. Because otherwise, those laser beams actually feel like they're going to carve my fucking skull open. Stop it with the fucking saturation. It's obnoxious.
It definitely is. And I know somebody's gonna say, but but you're perfectly fine with obnoxious colors. You defended the Flash Gordon movie. Yes, I did. But I never said you're supposed to take that movie serious, because how the hell do you take a movie seriously that has Brian Blessed in it? You can't. I couldn't take if I was standing next to Brian Blessed, I couldn't take myself seriously because I'd be dying of laughter. Seriously, have any of you ever seen him do an interview and try and keep a straight face? It's the ultimate try not to laugh challenge.
Mm-hmm.
But then there was Into Darkness. Oh boy. Okay, first thing I need to get out of my system. I've praised Chuck Sonnenberg, aka SF Debris, and I will continue to. He has had a bit of a thing for the longest time where the worst of a given show, a given film series, and so on, he gives to the Christmas slot. He broke that tradition last year by reviewing the first few episodes of Knight Rider. Which considering some of the other Christmas stuff that's gotten on the list, doesn't really qualify, but it was one he felt he needed to given what was going on at the time. Long story. But examples of previous Christmas episodes have been Code of Honor for TNG, which feels like a Doctor Who episode you wish would stay missing. Profit and Lace for DS9, which managed to piss off men, women, and the entire transgender community, all in one go, and this time for good reasons, not for stupid reasons. I forget the name of it, but there was one episode of SG-1 that did get the Christmas slot treatment.
Oh yeah.
And that's saying something because I like SG-1, but it's just as guilty of fails as.
Yeah.
Now I remember which one it was. It was Emancipation.
Especially if it said Christmas slot episode is a rehash, is a Dickensian rehash.
Yeah, because if at first you don't succeed, fail again. Would it surprise you all if I say that Into Darkness got the Christmas slot for Chuck?
Yep.
Yeah.
Now I do want to make clear that the comparisons to Wrath of Khan are understandable, but I do think it's a little bit overblown. At the same time, though, perception is reality, and when you're going to be doing your quote unquote take on Khan, you're asking for trouble, because let's not forget. Somebody else tried this a few years before that. That was the stated intent with Star Trek Nemesis.
Oh, it's just with the Borg.
With Nemesis they tried to do that thing of a Romulan clone of Picard.
Oh.
That looked nothing like a young Picard, and for some reason was still bald. Even though we had seen that at one point he did have hair. And having Benedict Cumberbatch do it, which I have no disrespect towards Cumberbatch as an actor. He's very, very good at his job.
Mm-hmm.
But it's a little hard for me to wrap my head around a British guy having an Indian name.
Yeah, Ricardo Montalban, he's not.
At the very least, if you're gonna go with that route, then don't have somebody who is so British he could outwhite a ghost.
Yeah, really. I mean, shit. Yeah, I think in this case you should have talked to Ben Kingsley for suggestions. I'm not saying Ben Kingsley should act. I'm saying maybe he knows a guy.
But moreover, I think Into Darkness really highlights the fact that I don't think Abrams is capable of writing a story with sophistication.
Yeah.
That gets exactly to something I wanted to say. When it comes to the first Star Trek movie, okay, it's the first movie in what's potentially going to be a series. It sets up its characters. It somewhat acknowledges the universe, even if it's a very strange take.
Yeah, this is back when Hollywood would actually went out the way not to piss off its audience.
But the first movie, like, okay, this is kind of the Star Trek that we can expect. A little heavy-handed on the action. It's definitely not necessarily paying heavy homage in any way, shape, or form to the source material, but it's enough that it's not slap a name on something and expect it to sell.
Yeah,
Khan,
yeah.
well, Wrath of Khan, considering you're using Khan as your villain, I can see why that would be a much more action-oriented film where, yeah, the shit's going down. It's Khan. I get it. All right, I'll give it a pass.
Yeah, I completely understand in this case with the Abrams Star Treks, because one issue that always turns me off to Star Trek for every reason, the pacing. I don't like the pacing.
I mean, that's part of my problem with Into Darkness.
The pacing was way too overboard.
It's not even that the pacing was off. It doesn't fit. It feels like two movies were mashed together, and it's not even just the pacing and the movie itself.
Actually, I felt it's the episode Space Seed and Wrath of Khan being mashed together.
But that's the point I was going to bring up.
Yeah.
It's not just the pacing of Into Darkness. It's the pacing of Star Trek, Wrath of Khan, and Into Darkness. Remove the first two and put Into Darkness as the first Abrams Star Trek film you've seen, you wouldn't even recognize them. It's just such a weird divergence of just let's throw a bunch of stuff on the screen and go crazy and CGI and this and that. What? It wasn't even iconic. It's not, at that point in time, they just threw everything else out the window and just said, no, we're just going to make a Star Trek movie, slap a label on it, it'll be fine, it'll sell. It was garbage. It was bad. It was bad. I could not stand that movie. I could rant for days about why it's trash, and I'm not going to.
Now, when it comes, now Planet Bound had pointed out that he doesn't acknowledge that he is the California role in that regard, and in this extent, this is why I have more. The thing is, I may talk my fair amount of shit about Michael Bay, but I have a teeny weeny little microscopic tiny amount of respect for Michael Bay for one specific reason that I don't for Abrams. Bay, at least, is fully aware of what he is. He does not pretend to be anything more than that.
Yeah, like basically, he knows his gimmick.
He knows his gimmick, and he's not trying to be anything more than that. And he's still a douche about his gimmick, but at the very least, I can respect that he's not trying to do anything that he can't.
Well, Mildred, I'll give you one more reason. When it comes to the Transformers movies, is there at least some continuity from film to film? Just an inkling.
Somewhat.
Now look at Into Darkness and the previous two Star Trek films, and tell me that Abrams even gives a flying fuck about the continuity that was established in those first two films.
So I will freely admit regarding this, I did not see Beyond. When I found out that one of the staffers involved with it had a background with the Fast and Furious, specifically the later entries in that series.
Oh boy!
I had no desire to go see it, especially when you have some random ass chick acting like she's the biggest badass in the room.
Money well saved.
Look, my freebie is a once every 3 months policy. And I had already used my freebie on something else that season, so I didn't feel like pushing it. But I do not think that he has any inkling of respect for continuity. I don't think Abrams has any respect for continuity, because after all, he's nuked 2 franchises worth of continuity on the grounds of it'll be easier for new people to jump in, which is something that I am fully aware that you end up hearing a lot in the comic book world, Doku, and you've probably found that just as much BS as I do.
It's not just BS. It's just an excuse for being lazy, right? And it's even more egregious, especially when it comes to someone like Abrams, because you're ignoring the continuity that you yourself have established in your own works. Right? That's just you wanting to just do whatever the hell you want to do and say, oh, well, it'll be easier for somebody else to do it. No, you just had an idea in your head. You wanted to do it. Someone paid you money to do it, and you don't give a flying fuck about what happened in Star Trek or Wrath of Khan. You just had this idea.
He outright admitted that he wasn't familiar with Star Trek beforehand.
Even if he wasn't familiar with Star Trek, he already established a continuity in 2 previous films. He doesn't even care about his own continuity. It's like,
now, as far as the episode 9 thing, Planet Bound, we'll get to that. Don't worry. Patience, young grasshopper. Well, I might be pushing the young part on this, given the age difference, but still, when it comes to the whole continuity thing, and that's the big reason why the last few attempts to do another Star Trek film have been in limbo. That whole R-rated one that Tarantino was going to work on, the reason that fell through was because he wanted to work in the original timeline, and Viacom had told him, Paramount had told him, no, you're working in the continuity of the last 3 films, and he was like, well, fuck this, I'm out. Probably for the best, because Tarantino is somebody who I do not see taking very well to being told what he can and can't do.
Oh, no, you cannot tell
all.
that guy what you can do.
Tarantino does what Tarantino wants.
Mm-hmm.
And it works.
Yeah, the point is he's not somebody that you can he's not somebody that you can necessarily control.
Well, even if he was, if you came to me and said, no, you're working within the continuity of these 3 films, I would ask you what? They're all standalone films. What continuity do I have to work with? Do you just want me to pull a story out of my ass? I could do that if you want, but it's not going to have anything to do with the previous 3 films. The previous 3 films don't have anything to do with each other to begin with anyways. So who the fuck cares?
Mm-hmm.
It's one of my issues with Abrams, and well, it will become a larger issue when we move on to the other sci-fi franchise.
Which, taking that into account, let's since you opened up that particular bag, and I do want to point out that I could see Tarantino doing Trek if it was a case of you get the original series timeline, but you have to do a Klingon story.
Oh boy!
You have to do a story where everybody that is focused entirely on the Klingon Empire. See, that I could see him doing.
Oh yeah.
I would actually like to watch that, to be honest.
Yeah.
I'm not saying you have to have everybody speaking the Klingon language during the whole thing, although it would be funny to do. And I know plenty of people who would gladly take up a linguist job a consultancy job for that.
Yeah, I wonder if Tarantino finds some creative ways to present God.
Yeah. That being said, when it came to Star Wars, once again now let's make something clear with this. Because of the fact that we're talking about Abrams and not Roundhead, we will not be discussing The Last Jedi.
Yeah.
That particular topic has been talked to death, and there are some things regarding episodes 9 and episode 7 that I want to discuss.
Yeah, like I said, Roundhead shouldn't be in the thing because that's not the subject of the situation.
I have no intention of bringing up the last movie that doesn't exist.
Yes. Now, I will admit, I used my freebie that month to go see The Force Awakens, and I remember initially. The funny thing is when it came to that film I had this mindset of enjoying it initially, and then as I started to think about it more and more, I started to see more and more holes in it, because you guys know how introspective I get.
Mm-hmm.
And then my initial feelings started to disappear, and I think I know why. It's one of those cases where he's very good at the old magic trick, and since I'm watching a film, obviously I want the magic trick. The thing is, though, once I've seen the magic trick, I don't feel like coming back for the magic trick. Some people are good enough illusionists that they can get you to come back for the next magic trick. He's not one of them.
No, you're right. He's not. And again, this goes back to my point of just because you have a few impactful scenes and some nice special effects doesn't. It might carry the movie while you're caught up in the moment, but that's about it. Once you're done watching the movie, you realize, like, oh, this wasn't even really that good. Mediocre at best.
Yeah, it was a rehash of episode 4.
That's a different issue, but
one thing that I do feel I need to call out is, I remember when I saw the initial responses, and people were saying that it was nice to see something good, and throwing the prequels under the bus. Now, I will freely admit the prequels are bad works. They are not good movies in the slightest. However,
I don't disagree.
At least it had a story structure.
I would still take them over the sequel for one simple reason. I would rather something be interestingly bad than boring. This is why I've asked the question philosophically: is it worse to be annoyed or bored? I have argued that it's worse to be bored, because at least if you're annoyed, you're giving some degree of attention.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I'm not going to bring this up because it leads into a different point. So go ahead, Mildred.
But if you're bored, then it's just, before I get into that, Planetbound, we here in the temple have a nickname for Kathleen Kennedy. We call her Nero.
Oh God.
And she is just as culpable, but we're culturally speaking, the everything hinges on the director these days.
Oh yeah.
And when it comes to there was definitely a lot of you could definitely see the attempts to repeat when it comes to episode 4 in a very superficial sense. It's very clear that Poe is supposed to be the Han Solo of this, which makes it perplexing why you'd bring Han Solo into the thing to begin with if you're going to do that. The BB-8 is supposed to be the reincarnation of R2-D2. Finn is. You would actually have. I've made this clear from the get-go. I do not remember a single promotional video up until after the film came out that showed Rey. A lot of the stuff that I saw showed Finn more than anything else.
Yeah, we all assumed Finn was going to be the main character, and it would have worked. But no, they had a bait and switch last minute and say, "Oh, Rey's the main character," and the problem was her personality was a throwaway at best.
All right, so I guess this is a good a time as any is to bring up the point I wanted to say about the prequels.
Mm-hmm.
At least the prequels were still following the continuity of a long form story. There was a 1, 2, and 3 that had to lead into another 1, 2, and 3, and it wasn't just a one-off movie, a la J.J. Abrams style.
Yeah.
Versus you get into The Force Awakens, and yes, it is a rehash of A New Hope. It is.
Yeah, say what you will about George Lucas, but at least he still follows a goddamn story structure. Abrams, like we see in Lost, it's like throw it in. I don't care.
Oh, and that's the thing with Force Awakens. Not only was it a rehash of A New Hope, it didn't do anything new or unique.
No.
It in fact dumbed it down. And as Mildred was saying earlier on the stream, but it'll make it easier for new people like a certain volleyball head looking bastard to come in and take the story in new and different directions. You didn't even do that. You didn't set anything up. You did not do anything. Sorry, real quick.
Go ahead.
It was Empire bad, Rebel good, big bad Starkiller base bad, go blow up Starkiller base, story over. It doesn't even lead into the second movie.
Yeah, nothing.
It's literally just a one-off, hey, watch flashy explosions, and hey, look at these quirky characters. Haha, I'm so random. Aren't they unique? Give me money. It's garbage. It's terrible.
Here's the thing with J.J. Abrams, okay? The problem is he doesn't respect any form of story. Everything, it's like, doesn't respect the audience, doesn't respect the mythos. It's just, okay, I'll just feed it to them, to the idiots coming to see the movie, and I'll just dazzle them because they're stupid, and I'll just get their money from them. Basically, I would say he's like a snake oil salesman when it comes to that.
Which I could definitely see that. I think it's something that is a consequence of thinking that there is a set formula to create a successful film, like a math problem.
Yeah, really. He's doing that, and you gave me an idea. What he's doing is Common Core bullshit. That's what it is. It's if you think of movie making as a math problem, J.J. Abrams is basically doing Common Core.
And the thing is, as anyone who's examined the ebbs and flows of an industry will tell you, there is no. This is not. You cannot pull some sort of Moneyball situation here.
Yeah, really.
And if you don't know what I mean by Moneyball, go look it up, or go watch the movie. It definitely exaggerates a few points, but it's mostly on point.
Yeah. Funny thing about Moneyball. Have you seen the cut content from Major League?
No.
Check it out.
I will take a look. I will take a look when I get the chance.
Yeah.
But when it comes to but the thing is that yeah, with something like the Moneyball thing in Oakland, you had this setup of all these overlooked people because of poorly understood analytics, and a strategy that worked. But eventually the people with bigger budgets started adapting to the tactic.
Yeah, they started to figure it out.
Mm-hmm. But when it comes to and I do want to make clear, you could potentially have done something with Ray, but the problem is there was the mystery box of the whole thing with her parents, and I remember rewriting a certain scene in The Force Awakens in my head to kind of give her at least some sort of characterization. You know, with the whole turning in junk and getting a certain set of portions. Instead of having the guy just say how many portions she was getting, do a whole thing of 2 portions. Well, last time it was 4 portions. It was 4 portions before you wrecked my ship. 2 portions or nothing.
Mm-hmm.
And yes, I will freely admit I'm stealing from the bell peppers with beef scene in the first episode of Cowboy Bebop. But it's a good setup to at least establish some sort of characterization. You know, you've got somebody who at least knows something about ships, but is kind of bad at it. And thus you can have a bit of a surprise when they're piloting the Millennium Falcon out of there. I mean, it's still a stretch, but at the very least, it's a stretch you can kind of wrap your head around.
Yeah. Like I said, it's the J.J. Abrams mystery box.
Mm-hmm.
And again, you could even make the argument maybe she's just bad at piloting a certain type of ship, but this one, it's like a glove. This one is a right fit for her. That would still at least be believable. But we're talking about J.J. Abrams here.
You want to know what's the funny part? When I would rip into some of the plot holes and the fact that I thought I was seeing a case of one character rise while another character falls, which was something that I had seen twice in the last few years in both. And I know some people are going to give me shit for bringing this up. Power Rangers Jungle Fury and Avatar. Whenever I would point out certain plot holes or things that didn't make sense, or especially when it came to Rey being able to use the Force for no goddamn reason, there would be people talking about how how the whole awakening thing, and I was like, that doesn't tell me shit.
Mm-hmm.
It goes back to that. You want to know what's a perfect analogy to the mystery box and how he handles it? Anybody remember that mystery box gag from Family Guy regarding the whole thing with the boat?
Yeah.
J.J. Abrams is Peter Griffin in that scene. About look, I think another analogy I could make is the birthday box poem by Shel Silverstein. Yes, that Shel Silverstein, the one whose crazy ass works we all read as kids.
Mildred, have you ever watched Team 4 Stars Hellsing Abridged?
Yes.
What's in the box?
God God, I hate
J-
you. So
J.J. Abrams is the major. Just what's in the box?
I want to
No one
point out
knows.
I want
It's
to
just
point out
not good.
I want to point out the irony in using that when he wants to declare, when his fans want to declare anybody who doesn't agree a Nazi, and you're making a comparison with an actual Nazi.
All right, here you go.
I stand by it.
Who's in the box?
Because I envy your normal life.
Put the gun down, David.
It seems that envy is my sin.
Oh, what's in the box? What's in the fucking box?
But that is what J.J. Abrams is when it comes to his style of storytelling, and it's why I said earlier at the very beginning of the stream that storytellers who rely on the mystery box method of storytelling, all it tells me is that you're not confident in your conclusion.
Exactly.
The end, wherever you're going with the story, regardless of how many twists and turns you take, you should know your conclusion, and it should be satisfying for the viewer or the reader. If you have to rely on this idea of a mystery box, that just tells me you don't know what the ending is, let alone if you think it's going to actually satisfy your end user audience.
At least M. Night Shyamalan, yeah, his endings don't make a lot of sense, but at least he actually thought of one.
Well, it's better to swing and miss than to not swing at all, let alone come up with an excuse as to why you swung and missed. J.J. Abrams doesn't have solid conclusions. He has strong moments. He has strong scenes. He doesn't have solid conclusions. That's why he relies on a mystery box.
Mm-hmm. And when it comes, the thing is that whole idea of mystery box where there's something in a box in the end, and just focusing on the imagining about what could be in it is very. I do agree with Midnight's Edge in that that's a very immature way to look at the box, simply because of the fact that, again, you need to actually have a understanding about what's going to be in the damn thing first and foremost, and you can't do a whole we'll figure that out later. Otherwise, you end up like WCW in 2000.
Just bringing that up, actually, I've come to a realization, an epiphany, if you will, when it comes to the J.J. Abrams style of storytelling. His storytelling is incredibly childish, and not in a good way.
Oh yeah.
In a literal, this is what a child would write way.
Yes.
Yeah.
Just looking at the way Force Awakens was presented, it reminds me of a kid, rather than a storyteller, presenting you with a story. Like what George Lucas did with A New Hope. Force Awakens reminds me of a kid playing with Hasbro toys, trying to reenact A New Hope.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, really.
Which I can see that. And now when it comes to something like The Rise of Skywalker, before I get into that, I want to ask you all a question. Have any of you heard of a film reviewer called Filmento?
Nope.
Nope.
Seen him pop up in my feed, but I haven't watched any of his content.
He actually has some interesting content, but he did a video on The Rise of Skywalker, and I would like to state word for word the subtitle he gave for it, because he put it in his review series called Anatomy of a Failure. Since he has two major series that he works on. One called Anatomy of a Failure, and the other called Film Perfection.
I have seen this. I know who you're talking about.
And a third one that he does is called 1v1, which the last 1v1 that I saw was his comparison between Wonder Woman and Captain Marvel and why one worked and the other didn't. The
I've seen this. I know exactly who you're talking about. This is going to be fun.
The subtitle that he put in for The Rise of Skywalker was called "How to Fail at Endgame." His argument was that The Rise of Skywalker was a cargo cult version of Endgame, but without the decade or so worth of build-up that Endgame had in its favor.
But that's the thing, because Rise of Skywalker, it wasn't building up to anything. It goes back to my primary complaint about J.J. Abrams. Excluding Volleyball Head, there was no story established. There was no plot established. There was, Luke's on an island somewhere. Gee, it's not like we already knew he was fucking missing from the entire movie. No one cares. It established nothing. The story itself gave nowhere to go, which is why Volleyball Head was able to do whatever the hell it is he wanted. And then you get to the final movie in the trilogy, and it might as well just be a standalone because there's nothing to build off of. It starts, it ends, it has nothing to do with any of their movies, it has nothing to do with any of the previous 3 movies, has nothing to do with the prequel trilogy. It's just there. And it's not good.
Pretty much. And even when you have some semblance that it might start getting good,
it goes full J.J. Abrams on you.
Yes, it does.
Again, we don't know what we're doing with the story, but here, pretty lights and special effects.
Yeah, really. Yeah, but after Last Jedi, they had to go back to the mystery box because they had no idea what they were doing.
Of course, this is where we have to point out the obvious part of the fact that somebody else had given them a full outline on what they could do, and they were like, "No, we're going to do our own thing," and everybody's going, "You sure you're probably dealing with buyer's remorse now, aren't you?"
I wish I could track down that outline. I could track down that outline and then hold on to it until I can come up with a coherent plan. Wait about 5 or 10 years and then say, okay, we're redoing episodes 7, 8, and 9. The ones that were done by Abrams and Roundhead, that's memory hold. No one's ever heard of it.
No, the thing is, you wouldn't even have to do that. Although if you did, it would probably make you a lot of money. Why did you throw out the expanded universe? You didn't even have to continue the main plot.
It's Disney, and it's Disney. Fucking, and besides, guess who's running that ship?
Well, okay. Side note: we all know what it is. It's because they didn't want to pay out certain people royalties. They wanted everything to be in-house. We know why. It's well established.
And they want to push bullshit. That's another thing.
That's a side note, but it really does boil down to them just being Scrooge McDuck about things. But yeah, I'll actually give J.J. Abrams a pass though on Rise of Skywalker. Because if you're coming off the heels of Last Jedi, good luck trying to salvage that thing. And I think he did the best with what he had, and in an odd sense, it's probably good that you had JJ, because he is good at doing one-off movies. So I would actually make the argument, if it was anyone else but him, that third movie would have turned out 10 times worse. It wouldn't even have been watchable.
Oh,
so
no.
I'll give him that credit.
It wasn't even watchable in its present form.
Well,
Which means it could have been worse.
That's what I'm saying. At least it's not as bad as it could have been.
Let's
And
put it
the
this
only
way.
reason for that is because of JJ.
Mm-hmm.
Tommy Wiseau could have made a better episode 9, in my opinion.
I don't know if I would go better, but I'll say interesting.
Fair. That's the best way to put it.
It would be memorable, and at least we'll get a few laughs out of it.
Yeah, although well, you guys have probably seen that cut where somebody replaced Luke at the end of Force Awakens with Tommy Wiseau and did a very convincing Photoshop of it.
Yeah. At least the internet has something to work with.
Mm-hmm.
We can at least be thankful for that.
Yeah. But I'd say the one thing that I will always be thankful to somebody like him for is providing me a crash course in what not to do as a writer. I do think that Abrams that you can perfectly well use somebody like Abrams as a second unit director or a cinematographer who is charged with maintaining the look of a film, even if it's not their vision. But once you put him in a highly creative role, then you're screwed.
That's the thing. Abrams is on the same level as Dan and Dave.
Oh god, those two idiots.
Again, they have a vision. They can make something look a certain way. They know everything about everything except how to write.
Yeah, really.
Which is kind of the most important point when it comes to storytelling. You can translate the vision, but you have no vision yourself. At least not in the sense that it's going to be something where people are going to go, holy crap, this is... No. It's why J.J. Abrams' Star Wars is garbage. Because it's not his vision. He's just translating somebody else's vision. It might look nice, but the story sucks. Same way, Game of Thrones, all the way up until George R. R. Martin left the project around season 5.
Mm-hmm.
Great up until there. But the second all the responsibility of storytelling came onto the shoulders of Dan and Dave, it all went to crap. Why? Because they're so focused on making things look visually appealing, having the right actors, having the right special effects, the right costume design, the right lighting, that they completely neglect that the story has to make sense.
I had said at one point that the worst thing you can say in a writer's room is, wouldn't it be cool if?
Yeah, don't do that. Yeah. I think Benioff and Weiss, I could put it this way. All sizzle, no steak.
The reason why I say wouldn't it be cool if is a terrible thing to say as a writer is because when you're in that kind of mindset, you're not thinking about the implications. As much as I love say Star Trek or Doctor Who, they had a similar bad habit of this kind of thing of introducing some sort of alien, some sort of anomaly or what have you, and not thinking about the long-term implications of that particular thing.
Well, Mildred, it's not even that. Sorry, go ahead, Aaron.
You know what a good example of that? The later Fast and the Furious movies. It's basically wouldn't it be cool, the movie?
Well, what I was going to say, Mildred, you're correct, but I think it's actually even it's an even bigger problem
Back in a moment.
because if you say, wouldn't it be cool if? And you can see this in Game of Thrones, especially in the later season, especially 6, 7, and 8. When you start getting into that mindset, you're not thinking about what's happened. You're not thinking about past seasons. You're not even thinking about what's going on right now. You're thinking 4, 5, 6, 7 steps ahead because, let's do this and let's do that. Let's do it. No, you should be focused on these characters, this story, this plot, and how do you get from point A to point B, not from point A to point fucking Z. And I know it's a joke. I know it's become a meme. How the hell did Gendry run from wherever the hell they were all the way back to the wall, and then enough time elapsed that Dany shows up on a dragon to come save everybody else? How did they know that Gendry was even the fastest runner? What did you guys skip?
You ever taken a shit while running at full speed?
Damn it, Bill.
Hey,
But
that is what we in the business call a receipt.
I think you get my point.
Mm-hmm.
Is when you start thinking about these things, you might be thinking as in a creative capacity, but you're not thinking as a writer, because you sort of have to explain these things to the audience. Otherwise, they don't make sense, and it breaks the plot. It breaks the story. Why is Gendry so fast? I don't know. He ate fucking Taco Bell last night. Who the fuck cares? You might buy that, but the audience doesn't.
Yeah, and obviously, if somebody wants to go with some version of, well, that's what it says in the script. I think I'm well within my rights to start beating you until my arms get tired.
Well, and that's the thing. It might be in the script, but it doesn't exactly explain it, and that just means you have really shit writers, which is exactly what we see with J.J. Abrams' Star Trek, Star Wars, and also Benioff and Weiss's Game of Thrones. It's just really crap writing, and it doesn't pay attention to its own script. It just wants to do cool things because bright lights and neat costumes, and hey, we have good actors and actresses.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's not gonna carry your story, because at the end of the day, it's all about the story. And if you ignore that, even just for a brief second, it breaks the entire thing. And so I guess maybe this is an aside about storytelling and why J.J. Abrams is, well, garbage.
Mm-hmm.
As a storyteller, not as a director or an actress or an actor or anything like that, but as a storyteller, you can't ignore even the most minute detail, especially when you're talking about fantasy or sci-fi or anything nonfiction. You can't ignore any of that, because the second you do, you'll introduce a plot hole. And if you continue to ignore it, that plot hole will become larger.
Mm-hmm.
Keep going on down that rabbit hole, just ignoring the story, the continuity, the world that you've built, and just keep doing the cool, pretty things that look nice on screen. Eventually, you'll end up with something that might look pretty. It might be visually appealing, but the story itself is going to be absolute garbage. Now, take that most egregious of all sins, ignoring your story, ignoring your world building, but then apply it to the world and the story that somebody else has built, you're doomed before you ever even began. And that's what J.J. Abrams did. He ignored everything and decided he could just copy-paste. That's why The Force Awakens, in retrospect, is going to be looked at as not only incredibly lazy, but just a failure when it comes to trying to advance a story. It doesn't even set one up.
Mm-hmm.
Which is why he ended up with the second movie that shall not be named. I mean, hell, even what the hell's her name? Harry Potter woman. Why am I blanking on her name?
Rowling.
Yeah, even J.K. Rowling breaks her own world building rules. And those movies were incredibly well received, and her books even better. And even her own world building and continuity doesn't fall in line. And she gets called out for it all the time. She freaks out. And she's the one who created the world. Stephen King has done the same thing. But then you take just a copy-paste writer-director like J.J. Abrams and put him in charge of something like Star Wars or Star Trek. It's almost like begging. It's like begging to just have the internet meme you into oblivion.
Mm-hmm.
You might make money, but you're going to kill your franchise.
Yeah, and
All right, back.
well, I think we all read some form of Aesop's fables as kids, unless I was the only one here who did. But I think we're all familiar with the adage, "Look before you leap," or as just some guy has referenced a couple times in recent weeks. Think more than one step ahead.
Well, that couldn't be more true than talking about the Star Wars and Star Trek franchises. They should have known what the last movie was going to be before they even started filming the first. And they clearly didn't.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I'll give them a brief pass on Star Trek because that is a franchise you could introduce movies episodically. But by the time you get to the second, third movie, you're going to want to have a more long-form plot. They don't have to be directly related, but at least the continuity of the universe has to make sense. But when it comes to something like Star Wars and you're doing an actual hard trilogy, it's more than obvious they didn't know what the ending was going to be. They didn't know who Rey's backstory was, who her parents were. They didn't know anything about Kylo. It seems like the only thing they did know is that Han, Solo, and Leia, because the actors and actress were getting old, they're going to have to phase them out anyways. That seems like the only thing they knew. Everything else was just copy-paste or haphazard bullshit that was just shoehorned in because, hey, it looks cool.
Basically destroy everything that was great about the franchise and replace it with just basic bitch writing. That's all it is. Bitch writing.
That's also why I don't. You'll notice that I haven't gone off on certain actors unless they do or say something stupid. That's a different matter entirely. Now if they say something on their own medias that's stupid, then I'm gonna rip into them because, well, you said something stupid. But I'm not gonna rip into how they portrayed a character because nothing they could have done about it.
Yeah, you're giving the script. Like I said, you just remember Al Pacino's career during the 2000s. The writing does matter, and Al Pacino won't be able to save it.
Mm-hmm.
He'll ham it up like a motherfucker, but he ain't gonna save it.
No.
Well, I mean, we can look at both Finn and Rey. you can play those characters as best you want, but how do you play a character if the writers themselves don't exactly know what they're doing with the character?
Yeah,
Wing it. It'll be fine.
Yeah, just wing it. You'll be fine.
Yeah, and then the problem with saying just wing it when you're dealing with something that's high profile as this is that's going to affect what work they could or couldn't get down the road. Even if they do a good job, there were a bunch of Han Solo like roles that Harrison Ford turned down because he didn't want to get himself typecast.
Yeah, really.
And being typecast is one thing, but I mean, in a way, I feel bad for Daisy Ridley because how are you going to portray a character where imagine being her and walking in and saying like, okay, so what's my character? What's my backstory? We don't know, but you can use the Force. You can use the Force, and we don't know who your parents are, but you'll be fine. By the way, you're the star actress.
I think in Daisy Ridley's case, she was shoehorned into this shit. I mean, she was shoehorned, I think, in a position that she wasn't even ready for, in my opinion.
In her own words, she said that she blames Disney, Star Wars, for killing her career, and I don't blame her for having that sentiment because, again, no one knew who the hell she was before she was cast as Rey. And again, how are you going to walk in and be like, "Who am I? What's my backstory? What's my motivation?" You're an orphan on a desert planet. Okay, so I'm playing a deviant art fan fiction version of Luke Skywalker? Yes. Fuck me.
Yeah, basically her character is this. She's cute, that's it. She's cute, can use the Force, better than anybody in the series, that's it.
And granted, given what she had, I would argue she did the best with what she was given.
Like I said, I would say she like Finn, she like John Boyega. We need a redemption role. Stat.
Well, imagine how different Daisy Ridley playing Rey would have been if before they even started shooting Force Awakens, if they told her, "You're Palpatine's granddaughter." I would be willing to bet money that the way she portrayed Rey's character would have been completely different than what we saw in Force Awakens.
Yeah, I would say, make her and Finn both fucking Jedi or something, you know? Like I said, you could have wrote the sequel trilogy a lot better. You have Finn basically going there was a stormtrooper that realized he's right from wrong. Then of course it turns out because he somehow had latency in the Force or some shit like that. And then Rey turns out she's trying to do better, but the problem is that pull back in the dark side proved too much. I would say for like that 8th episode, she would be a Sith for a while, you know?
Well, yeah, this is how I can tell you that not only did they not have an actual ending or any backstory to these main characters, but they just didn't know what they were doing in general. In the Force Awakens, if you had just rewritten the scene where Han Solo gets killed by Kylo, have Rey just have a brief moment of rage, and she Force lightnings the ever-living crap out of Kylo. Doesn't kill him, but it lets Kylo know who she is, what power she has, and it also makes Rey have to go through the same type of hero's journey that Luke does in Empire Strikes Back. Because she knows the type of power she does, and she knows it's fucking evil. Boom, right there. You have fixed Rey's character in that one scene.
Yeah.
Now, when it comes to it, um, I think I do find it amusing that that there have been so many attempts from different fans that would have made better stories. Plus, I'm pretty sure some of you read that Duel of the Fates script that got leaked,
Yes, I did.
and a bunch of the concept art for that kind of thing.
I haven't.
I actually do recommend looking into it because it is a fascinating spin. One that actually feels like a finale, since everybody gets a chance to shine.
It is worth reading. I mean, it's not without its, in my opinion, flaws, but it's a lot better than what we got.
Yeah, really.
But
then again, that's not saying much.
Look, I've learned to enjoy the little things.
Well, you know it's bad when the fan fiction is actually becoming better than the actual canon work.
Pretty much. But I think that will more or less do it for this particular roasting of Abrams. He'll probably be back here one of these days, and we will roast him out over.
Yeah, roast him over an open fire. But for now, Abrams, until you come back, into the clown car you go.
Enough from the clown.
And of course, and with that in mind, that is going to do it for this week on GeekWatch. Next week, if I do not see Xana in here, if I do not see Matt Wheaton and Misanthropic in the chat, I am going to be severely disappointed, because next week we're doing Life Paths again. This time with Mecton Zeta.
Oh boy.
So I look forward to having you guys back for that. I will note, I do have the digital copy of Cyberpunk Red. It's still gonna be waiting at least a few weeks before the physical copy comes in. The digital copy is gonna keep me busy though, because it's like 500 pages, as I expected it was gonna be.
Yeah.
Especially since you're dealing with what amounts to a prequel kind of thing.
Yeah.
Or rather a midquel, since Red takes place in between 2020 and 2077.
Yeah. And also, my quick start is complete.
Mm-hmm.
I will be demoing with a certain someone sometime this week or next week. I won't reveal who or where until everything is locked down, because plans tend to go awry.
I will, however, bring up the fact that you were tearing your damn hair out over the last week.
Yeah. Coding makes me want to headbutt people.
Pretty much. Not that I can blame you. At the very least, when I was doing the custom scripts for the 4E campaign that we did, I at least had some measure of backup.
Yeah.
But it is what it is. Now,
I was raw dog in this one.
Yeah. Now, I do have a few interviews that I got lined up for this week. In fact, I've got one for each weekday this week. So one a day, Monday through Friday. Monday, I'll be talking with CRISPR Monkey Studios on their particular Carbon 2185. Tuesday, I'll be talking with comic book artist Michael Hinson, creator of the Weird West comic Disputed Territory that I found out when I was in Texas. It's actually pretty promising. Wednesday, I'll be talking with Josiah Mork again. I haven't talked with him in a while, and he's working on a new project, so good opportunity to bring him in. Thursday, I'll be talking with Jason Lamey, who's responsible for Stellar Chaos, the RPG Kickstarter we talked about in the early days of the Kickstarter Spotlight. He actually got back to me a couple weeks ago, so we'll have an opportunity to reconnect. And Friday is the big one with Spike freaking Spencer.
Oh boy.
So yeah, on Friday I'll be doing my first interview with a voice actor. No pressure on me, not at all.
Oh no!
And of course, there's gonna be plenty more stuff. On the 11th, I will be having James E. Jackson. That's gonna be That's gonna be 1 week from Friday. Back on the show to talk about his StartPlaying.games site, since he's a GM for hire kind of thing. On the 16th, and these are ones that I've got the 15th and 16th, I've got two others locked in. One of them with Heart Wizard Games. We were gonna do it a couple months ago, but he felt that he wanted to wait until he had some more material to go over for me. And Wednesday the 16th, I'll be having one of our other favorite Australians in Steve Grodd back on the show, the guy behind Low Fantasy Gaming and a cyberpunk version of that. In fact, that's what we'll be talking about. Specifically, it's called Low Life 2090. Basically his attempt to bring his old school hack of 5e rules into a bit of Shadowrun setup. So that's what we got to look forward to for a good chunk of December. And of course, there'll be other surprises as there always are here in the watch. But until then, on behalf of the good brothers present and not present, my name is Mildra. I am your gaming monk, and join the